Welcome to Voices on the Roanoke. Today we have George Swain, a Washington County resident with a lot of stories to tell. George, how are you this morning?
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Good, good. Did you grow up in Washington County?
I grew up in Washington County and Terrell County. I had deep roots here in Washington County on both sides of my family, my mother and my father. I think of Washington County, I have more of that being my deeper roots. I graduated from high school in Terrell County, had some wonderful teachers. I finished high school for Terrell family.
What was your biggest memory of high school in Terrell County? And that is the way you say it, is Terrell
County. Barefoot on the Woodley Road. The Woodley Road was a dead-end road, all dirt roads back in that day, which would have been the late 60s, maybe reaching into the real early 70s. And all dirt roads and walking barefoot and going to the Scuppernong River at the end of the Woodley Road. The Scuppernong River, there was referred to, that area was referred to as Dunbar Landing. It was many years later before I began to understand the history and the importance of Dunbar Landing. Started hearing some of the stories from some of the old timers that they were actually Woodleys that lived on the Woodley Road. There was Mr. Eli Woodley, whose wife was a school teacher. There was Mr. Henry Woodley. His wife, I believe her name was Thelma, and he had a son named Horace Woodley. And Horace Woodley was very much into the history of Terrell County himself.
Give our folks a little concept of the difference between Terrell and Washington and why they're so closely aligned.
Washington County was once Terrell County.
So it was a part of Terrell County.
It was a part of Terrell County, and I'm told that included Martin County. I wanted to go back a little bit to Dunbar Landing. And Dunbar Landing, I'm told that it was a point on the Scuppernong River, up the river past the town of Columbia, the only town in Terrell County, where they brought slaves in. And there, under a grove of oak trees on the Woodley Road, there was, I can recall a couple of the old structures that were there, buildings, but it was a beautiful grove of oak trees. And I'm told that's where the trade took place. Now, I'm speculating that most likely after the sales were made, the the rivers and the creeks being the main way of travel, that they probably traveled further on up the river, maybe to the area that we call Spruce Ridge, which is in Washington County. And there were several plantations in that general vicinity that many of these slaves may have been their destination. That it could have been the Pettigrew. There was a Woodley plantation. There was the it evades me right now. The Idlewild plantation, which is actually, I think that may be referred to as area of Cherry. So there's a piece of history that I'm not sure that Terrell County has captured that needs to be captured. Like I say, growing up the Woodley Road, I had no, as a young person, it was after I had already left the area before all of this really started sinking in as to what we had up there, and how important this history is. But walking out those roads, barefooted and throwing rocks, and it was just a wonderful place to grow up.
You're just out in nature, and it's still like that today.
In a lot of ways, it's still like that today.
Scuppernong's a beautiful river,
Beautiful.
unspoiled.
Yes.
So it's a great kayak river if you like to kayak and enjoy water sports. Beautiful river.
In fact, that whole area in the Terrell County and Albemarle Sound has a different feel as you go east. The isolation that exists in that area, and the water, actually, the Sound water itself, I can recall it seemed so much cleaner, fresher.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You talked a little bit of childhood of growing up, playing out on the dirt roads. Did you ever talk to any of the old folks who lived out in the area?
I loved the old folks, and I give so much credit to our lives were being shaped. Myself and my three brothers that grew up down there also, and we were not even aware of just the impact it was having, and there was so much wisdom in the older folks, and I remember one of the first farmers that we worked with was Horace Woodley, Tommy Spruill. Tommy's wife Patty was a school teacher, and Tommy was a hog farmer. He got his early start with his, I believe it was his offer, Webb Brickhouse, and we spent many hours, my brothers and I, with Tommy and one or two more. We would pulling cucumbers out of the soybeans, and or chopping weeds, and feeding hogs, chasing hogs, loading hogs. So there's just so many memories that started our work ethic before we even understood what a work ethic was.
Right.
Yes.
Right. What brought you to Plymouth?
Plymouth in those days, if you were not going to leave high school and go on to college, then Plymouth, there was two places that were mentioned, and they didn't really necessarily refer to it as Plymouth. They referred to it as the pulp mill or the shipyard. But
What kind of mill was that?
uh,
Tell us about the mill.
well, the mill, warehouser mill, or anything associated with the warehouser, which included, I mean, their timberlands. But and when you said the mill, most folks automatically thought you were referring to the paper mill. But the mill also included wood products, which during that time was referred to as plywood. Now, Plymouth had so much more that than just the mills, those two mills, that were an important part of the success of the town. I think you would probably have to, before my time, look back to what was called Atlas Plywood. Atlas Plywood was later referred to as GP, or Georgia Pacific, which was a much smaller mill. And then we also had a what was referred to as the handle mill. The handle mill was, as I recall, was a company called True Temper. And then there was so many other things that were
What were they making at the handle mill?
True Temper made handles. I'm not sure what the handles were, if they were axe handles, hammer handles, or what. But I do recall they would give away the material that was discarded in the process, which some of it may have been slabs, some of it was more like spindles, and they gave it to people, and I don't know, maybe even they sold it at some point. But what I recall, you could just go there and get the surplus, and people used it for firewood. The handle mill, the tugs would bring the flotillas, I reckon is a proper term, of ash logs. I think they were actually using ash, and I'm not sure how ash and hickory go. Usually we think of handles, we tend to think of hickory, and maybe some of them were hickory. But they would, these flotillas of logs, they would bring in to the out of the Roanoke River. There's some tributaries. Some of it may have been a part of, no, I don't think it would have been Welch's Creek. I think it was just maybe some tributaries that flowed into the back of the mill, and from there the lumber was fed into the mill. But the mills were kind of like the lifeblood of Plymouth. They were other things that probably built around there. We had a sewing factory, and we had the auto industry. We had Ford Motor Company here, a Ford dealership. We had Chevrolet, GM, and I can recall this building that we're sitting in here. I can recall there would have been no less than probably 10 or 12 toolboxes just in this building, where this dealership employed mechanics. And then out back you had the body shop. And it would have been the summer, maybe not that many. But all of these were jobs that just made Plymouth a thriving community.
When you came to town as a kid with your parents, did you come to Plymouth or did you go to Columbia? Who was the bigger town?
A trip from Columbia or Prescott area to Plymouth, or the other option was Edenton, and it had to be really something special for you to go as far as Williamston. But this was where people came to shop for clothing, for back to school or a pair of shoes. This is where they came to the first store such as the A&T, the Atlantic Pacific Tea Company, I think it was called A&P. But A&P was a chain supermarket, some of the first supermarkets. Before that, you had very few options. There was a store in Creswell that was called Tom Woodley's. And Tom Woodley's was like a general store. There was as you walked in, you probably saw the canner, and behind the canner there was aisles of like huge bookcases. And this is where the groceries were. And so you never been there with my uncle, and he would hand Tom Woodley the grocery list. And Tom would proceed to go among the aisles and bring the stuff out to the counter. And sometimes people carried an old cabbage bag to put their groceries in. Maybe Tom had the boxes that he had got with him with the bulk material he had come in. And maybe you were lucky enough to land on one of those boxes. But that's the way you got groceries. And out in front of the aisle, there would be a couple of very canners that maybe measured as much as 8 by 8, and they would be maybe coveralls and denim shirts, and it would all be stacked there. It was dimly lit with a light bulb hanging over it, cord going up. I can visualize it and see it. You probably would see maybe some fly paper, they call it.
Fly strips.
Fly strips. That and maybe one old ceiling fan with but it was very dimly lit. And then on the around the store, you on higher shelves, you would probably see what was referred to in that day as gum boots or hip boots. You didn't hear very much about waiters, people that trapped and everything. They had hip boots that had a strap that would go up that you could hook onto your belt. And and then out front, especially that in Creswell, they were still tying horses to hitch posts, and you could see maybe people coming with jugs to get water from the artesian well, which a lot of people swore by their artesian water being a healthy source. It definitely had an odor. I can't explain that odor. Some people described it as rotting eggs,
Sulfur.
very sulfur.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes. But yes. Plymouth was on weekends, Fridays and Saturdays, was a bustling place. That was 2 days that a lot of business was taking place your banks were open, and people come to pay their bills on the weekends.
Did you work in the mill or an associated warehouser?
I worked. As a young person, I jumped around, exploring a lot of things. I worked. One of the early places I worked was for Teddy Roosevelt Hill. Opened a wood treating facility out on Highway 45, east of Plymouth, and Ted had secured a contract, pressure treated lumber. They were treating lumber. Back then, the locals referred to it as salt treated lumber. It was actually a mixture of arsenic, chromate, copper and chromate. And so I worked with Ted for a couple of years, and actually worked in Weyerhaeuser logwoods for less than a year. I was jumping around trying things before I actually went into the mill, wood boss. And yeah, I had an interesting career in wood products, starting from once again, I was fortunate enough to work with the older generation. They had within the wood products, they had a general maintenance group, and it was it was a lake pool that and the general maintenance, and the general maintenance was the older guys that were far beyond being line mechanics, because they had health issues, and but I was got the opportunity to work with as a helper with many of these guys. So by the time that I actually tested and became a full-fledged millwright, I was very knowledgeable of a lot of things, that maybe someone hiring directly into the line mechanic, it would took me years to cover that.
You were trained by experience.
I was trained by experience. I had the opportunity to grow. We wind up having a maintenance training program through the community colleges, and holding your job was you had to move forward academically to do that.
That's great.
And looking back, going back to the public school system in those days, I even then when I was in living up the Woodley Road and working with them elderly farmers and hearing, learning from them, we had a within the school system, we had shopped, and once again, when you're learning, you're picking up things and you're not even aware of, and all that is developing uh, a work ethic that doesn't overwhelm an individual when they actually get into the work system. They're not overwhelmed. So
Eased into
you're eased into it.
you know what's expected of you.
Well, yeah, it is there. Yes, yes.
Good. I understand you're a little bit of a history buff.
I have always. I suppose I didn't realize I was, but the different twists and turns in life, and made me grow into one. And I secured some property out on Highway 45.
Where does 45 go to?
45 goes, well, North 45 for me, looking at it, it starts at what used to be referred to as Pines Elementary School, and it runs into Bertie County all the way up, crosses Highway 17, and runs deep into maybe Gates County. I'm not sure about that.
Almost to the Virginia.
All the way through, yes.
Now, here, where we're talking is northeastern North Carolina on the south shore of the Albemarle Sound. George just took you across the Sound, across the river, across the Roanoke River on Highway 45. So if you want to look at that, you can Google Earth it or do something like that to see exactly where we're talking about.
Yes, it crosses the Roanoke River. It crosses several bodies of water. Actually, the Roanoke River is in Bertie County, but you cross Conaby Creek, which is in Washington County, before you reach the Roanoke River. So it's actually all these rivers, the Roanoke, Middle, and Kashai, is all part of the Roanoke River Delta. And there's a lots of tributaries that I used to hear the old fishermen call these by name and actually argue about the names. So I suppose we have them all. We have them all correctly identified.
There's a tremendous amount of oral history
Yes.
that's here. There's a lot of written history. I consider Washington County and Plymouth, my acronym is a bowl with an onion sitting in it covered in spaghetti noodles. And
Yes.
the individual stories are the spaghetti noodles, and then you get down to the onion, and that's when the details
Yes.
of the stories. Settlement here started, well, the first Europeans that we think came up here, or we know that came here, were from Roanoke Island, from the Lost Colony. They came up to the Indians here on Welch's Creek. So there's a lot of history besides that, and all the settlement that happened, the Civil War battles that happened here. But you're into, you and I have talked before.
Yeah.
There's one particular area that you're really intrigued with.
I'm intrigued in it with the area where I currently live, and you will not find it referred to by this name on a map that I'm aware of. but it's Guards Island. Now, Guards Island, and what we have to be aware of is that everything that was given the name an island back in the day was not an island. We would not look at it as an island today. And
If it was a high point in a swamp, it would be called an island.
That's right. And that's the that's the story around Guards Island. Guards Island, we had a local historian here. I reckon you would call it, he was more than that. He was actually, his roots were in Bertie County, Harry Thompson. And we had, once again, I go back, I first was intrigued with this location without knowing it was Guards Island. Back when I worked with Ted Hill, his treating plant was on Guards Island. And actually, I was so intrigued with the place that I bought property out there. I bought some property from Eugene and Suzanne Cunningham. And then I started hearing the stories. Bill Darden's, who's a relative of individual that contributed a lot to the Washington County Tapestry book.
And that's a history book, a lot of oral history, but it's recorded.
Yeah.
The project was started in the 50s and finished up in the 70s about Washington County and the surrounding area.
And this was John Darden that wrote a lot of the history that's in that book. And you will find reference to Guards Island in that book. Now, through conversation with Harry Thompson, there was two names. Before the 1860s, before the Plymouth was held by the North, Plymouth being a major seaport and having sailors that had illnesses or diseases, and from what I've been told, there was referred to as shanties or just small structures that were on Quarantine Island, they called that. But during the 1860s is, from what I understand, is where the term Guards Island showed up. And that's speculating and just using logic. It makes perfectly good sense that it would have been called Guards Island. The North maintained an outpost on the point of Conoby Creek and the Roanoke River. That would have been the Western King, and on Guards Island. And the purpose of maintaining that was to as a signaling to the population that was in Plymouth, which was being held through the four forts that were here, was as a warning signal if the enemy was approaching from the sound. And also, I understand there was a cannon there, so it would have been the first line of defense. And then what is so intriguing about this story is once I had been living here for a while and started running into more and more of the population, there was a story of the lost pay rate that was being kept just among a few of our citizens. And but there was a gentleman that traveled here from the state of Colorado, and I don't recall where, but he was very aware of this story.
This be Union gold or Confederate gold?
This would have been a Union payroll, which you can look back. There was literature that shows that there was a payroll, and it was common practice for the North to send a paymaster. And keep in mind now that we're talking about here the North is behind the enemy lines. And so it's easy to see how the story was going. But in research, the payroll was a real thing, but it was greenbacks. Not the end of the story, y'all. Not the end of the story. There is too much information that something was removed in a clandestine mode just prior to the battle.
Now we're talking about the Battle of 1864, April of 1864, when the Confederate forces under their General Hoke attacked the town of Plymouth. Plymouth was a Union stronghold that was occupied in 1862 and remained there until the April 1864 battle. And then after the sinking of the Albemarle in the fall of 1864, it was returned to Union hands.
It is my theory, after researching this in my way of research, which has included a lot of people that are now gone, and that there was valuables. It just wasn't a payroll. It was accumulated values from the surrounding community.
Trophies of war.
Trophies of war. I have searched to see if there was if smelting was done by the armies, and it appears it was not. So it would have maintained its natural state, whether it was silver tea trays or whether it was actually money itself, gold, which was, I suppose, still a common practice in that day, the use of gold.
Okay.
And so and you've got to remember there was 3,000 plus troops here, and this was an area that was that the black population, which was running from their masters, felt safe and could find employment. And so there was a lot of work here, and a lot of people to feed and keep warm and cook, which used firewood. There was just a lot of work. And but there was also constantly sending raiding parties out into the surrounding area, and these raiding parties would have had to went deeper and deeper as time progressed, and the trophies of war would have been brought back. And I'm also I love old antiques, and I've been told it was a common practice during that period of time as the northern armies or scouts went out on these, and I'm sure they would have took many of the former slaves with them to bring a lot of this material back. We're talking about what was in the smokehouses, we're talking about livestock, and we're talking about the trophies of war, all of it. But I'm sure that over a 2-year span, maybe, how long was these armies actually here at East.
62 to 64, and then up until 1880, 1879.
So we're talking about an accumulation.
Yeah.
So, and that this story has been passed, and there's so many different spins on the story.
Isn't that what Plymouth and Washington County is all about? It is spinning different stories in different directions.
Yes, and it was probably purposely done to throw off to throw people off in those days. But
Have you found anything explored around Guards Island?
I have searched, and most of Guards Island has been excavated, because now I call it, and I have a map of it. I call it the dunes of Guards Island. So it was actually within this 2,000 plus acres of the swamp. There was a sand dune that would have actually been the only part of Guards Island that they could have lived on. And help me.
You've not found it yet.
I've not found it yet, but I keep saying, when God decides it's right, if it's southbound, it will show up. But I was saying earlier, Highway 45 itself, as it crosses, I'm going to call it Guards Island. I want Guards Island to receive its name.
This sounds a whole lot better than Quarantine Island.
Yes. And
At least your Chamber of Commerce did.
now I have seen it in my research. DOT, which is most of these maps I think had been destroyed now, did have a elevation map when they built Highway 45 across Guards Island that showed it and identified it as Guards Island and showed the height of the sand on the dunes. Now, where did the sand go? As you travel, I'm told, as you travel from the river to Conaby Creek, that roadbed is a lot of Guards Island on that roadbed across that spot.
They used the local sand.
They used what was convenient, yes. Now, and I've also heard the stories from the old timers that actually, I have been told that originally they had planned to go further east with 45, Highway 45. Actually, cross where would be the more of the mouth of the river. But the hunters and the bootleggers, the fishermen, the local population steered them towards Guards Island because of all this sand. And if you can picture this white tarball sand, which is the same sand that you find when you go to Jotty's Ridge, if you can picture this white sand trapped into this swamp, these dunes of white sand with hickory trees and beech trees and dogwoods, and you can just visualize that. And there was some elm trees there also. You can visualize that into late fall. You get a picture of what Guards Island is. Beautiful.
Well, George, thank you for sitting down with us today. I hope to have you back. You'll continue to spin some more yarns
Yes.
of Washington County and life on the Roanoke, because you live basically on the Roanoke River.
That's right. I've never been a hunter or fisherman, but I've been an explorer all my life.
And that's what this place is really
Yeah.
all about, is exploring. Thank you for stopping in. Thank you for viewing with us and sticking with us. George, thank you very much.
Thank you.